All right, we are wrapping up the animal kingdom today with our third and final video going over the endothermic vertebrates from chapter 18, but in particular the mammals, and then even more specific than that, we have been going through the placental mammals. This is our third and final video about the placental mammals. So just a few more orders to go over here. First of all, we're here looking at order Perissodactyla, also known as the odd-toed ungulates. The ungulates, roughly speaking, are the hoofed mammals. So these are the animals that have hooves. And the hoof is basically kind of like a modified toenail, essentially, that is at the tip of one of its toes. And this gets into the odd-toed versus the even-toed. And I have an image on the next slide that helps you understand what's going on with the odd-toed versus even-toed. If you're thinking like stuff from the Bible, the odd toad, we most of them that we come in contact with just have one hoof, and so that would be like the animals that do not split the hoof versus the even toed. These are ones that are cloven hoofed or ones that do like split the toe or split the hoof, kind of a thing. All right, so the odd toad, this has about 17 species. All of these are approximately because it's just there's just enough debate about whether or not certain things are considered distinct species from each other or the same species that depending where you look, you won't always see 17, but with this one usually 17. And this includes stuff like horses, zebras, rhinoceroses, and tapirs. And the tapir, I have a picture and a little video about that in just a little bit. The tapir is kind of like a small cousin of the giraffe. So giraffe would be in. Oh no, wait, giraffe is next. But tapir is very similar. Yeah. Anyway, but their hoof pattern is different, even though they are very similar to each other. So there you go. So, except for the tapirs, these are all native to Asia and Africa. So, horses, zebras, rhinos, all originally were from Asia and Africa. And ungulates, generally speaking, are herbivores. And but the odd-toed versus even-toed, there's a slight difference in how they digest the cellulose. So, like cellulose, is the main molecule, the main component of the plant cell wall, and our bodies cannot digest that. Most animals cannot digest that. Herbivores can, and it comes down to okay, well, how do they digest it in order to get nutrition from it? And in the case of the odd toed ungulates, they have this hindgut fermentation. I have an image on the next slide that also explains a little bit about that. This hindgut fermentation where yeah, there's a process that goes on that breaks down the cellulose so they can get energy from it so it can act as a food source. And they get about 45% of the energy out of the cellulose. But then the even-toed ungulates, there's about 210 species of these, so way more than the odd-toed. And this includes things like pigs and cows and hippopotamuses and deer, giraffes, goats, and antelopes. And then the way that they digest the cellulose involves a rumen, which is like a separate chamber of their stomach. And what they oftentimes do is after partially digesting the grass, they will essentially kind of like vomit it up back into their mouth, where they will chew it some more and then re-swallow it. But then some of the digestion takes place in this rumen. But you may have heard the term of ruminating on something like, oh, let me ruminate on that a little bit. That's I mean, figuratively, what a person's saying when they are saying that they are ruminating on something is they're saying that they're just thinking about it, they're pondering it, they're going over it in their mind. But what that's referring to is that act of basically vomiting food back up into your mouth to chew it some more in order to digest it better. So, what you're kind of saying when a person says that they are ruminating on something is you're kind of saying that they're like vomiting the thoughts back up into their mind for them to quote unquote chew on it some more. And yeah, so that's where that term comes from. And the process of using the rumen for digesting the cellulose, they're able to get about 60% of the energy out of it. All right, so let's look at some of these pictures. So here we have what the bone structure is like in the feet of pigs, rhinos, cows, and horses. And what you have is like this stuff here is basically the toe. And so see how like a pig you have one, two, three, four toes. And then these are the two main ones that it walks on. Okay, and so those will have the like hardened, like you can see right there. Okay, those are the harder, and then you have the smaller ones. But these are basically the hoofs are almost less like kind of like I was saying, like modified toenails. And then a rhinoceros has three. And so what happens is the even-toed, they will either have just two. Well, so let's see, one, two, three, four. So you have these four toes here total, okay, in even number, and it's the second and third that it's walking on. I feel like there's a fifth that you can't really see in this diagram, but I don't remember for sure. Rhinoceros, of these three, it's the middle one. Cow, you have just those two there. Horse, you have just the one. Okay, so rhino three, horse one, those are odd toed, and then cow two, pig four, those are even toed. And so you have like a one toed hoof here, a two toed hoof. It's split there. That would be like a camel there, I'm pretty sure. A three-toed hoof, that would be like the rhinoceros, and then a four-toed hoof like the pig. And then this is showing a little bit that kind of what's going on a little bit with the anatomy of the digestive system there. With the cecum and the colon, this would be the shaded part there is that hind gut where the fermentation is happening that digests the cellulose. And then here you have the rumen of a pig or of a cow in this case being shown. Okay, let's do a lecture question. I have, where is it? Not that one. Not that one. I had one for, oh, nope, I didn't end up grabbing one. I thought I had one about one of these animals, but I didn't. Okay, moving on. These are just the pictures. So this is a tapir. Okay. And this in particular is a Brazilian tapir calf, so it's a young one. Here's an older tapir. They are like kind of trunked, but not fully trunked. But yeah, interesting that they are very closely related to the giraffe. So these are tapirs, and here you have a white rhinoceros, which is actually gray, but they're called white rhino. They are the biggest of the rhinos. And then hippopotamus. Oh, that's what I have a question about. Yeah, okay. Video question number 3. Video question number 3. What is kind of ironic about the fact that hippos spend most of their life in water? So again, video question number 3. What is kind of ironic about the fact that hippos spend most of their time in water? And the answer is they can't swim. Yeah, hippos, they live almost their entire life underwater in water. They go underwater frequently. They can easily hold their breath for 5 to 7 minutes. They'll even sleep underwater sometimes, but while they're asleep, they will surface up just enough so that they can get a fresh breath of air and then come back down. But yeah, they can't swim. What they do is they're just very good at walking underwater, whether it be their head above water and they walk, or completely underwater and just kind of walking slash pushing off the surface and gliding to the next spot where they push off. And that's it. All right, so yeah, hippo. This is a gazelle. Gazelles, variety of gazelles, antelope, stuff like that. A lot of them can stand in order to reach higher up for the food that they're eating. There's a gazelle there. And then a giraffe. That was a giraffe at the Sacramento Zoo picture that I snapped of him. All right. And something about the tapir.
Welcome to ZSL's Curious Creatures. This week's curious creature comes from the forests of Central Africa. This intriguing animal is an okapi. It is one of 2 living species in the giraffid family and is a smaller, shyer cousin of the giraffe.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was not thinking of, yeah, I was not, it's the okapi that is related to the giraffe. I was like, why is the tapered giraffe so closely related to the giraffe when they're not in the same order? Yeah, it's the okapi that I was thinking of. These are pretty cool though. Wait until you can see the whole thing. It went back. It was supposed to keep playing. Hold on a second. Man, the struggles are real this time. Okay, let's jump in.
This intriguing animal is an okapi. It is one of two living species in the giraffid family and is a smaller, shyer cousin of the giraffe. Though giraffe are widely spread across the savannas and deserts of 21 countries in Africa, the okapi is only found in the dense tropical rainforests of the northeast and central areas of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Okapis are the size of a small horse, and although their stripes may seem zebra-like, they are actually a deep chocolate brown. The texture of an okapi's coat is said to be velvety and slightly greasy in order to help keep it waterproof in its damp rainforest habitat. One curious feature of this elegant creature is its prehensile purplish-black tongue, which is 30 centimetres in length, long enough to clean its own eyes. And this tongue is used for stripping the leaves and buds from stems of various plants. The amazing okapi can also retract its eyeballs back into their sockets to avoid damage while walking through dense undergrowth. The okapi has the ability to rotate its ears to be able to pinpoint sounds all around them. The okapi first became known to the Western world from a specimen acquired by the then British High Commissioner of Uganda and ZSL Fellow Sir Harry Johnston, and was scientifically described at a meeting of the Society in 1901. Its elusiveness has made population density studies exceedingly difficult. Because of this, there are estimated to be anything between 10,000 and 35,000 animals left in the wild. Click subscribe to join us on our next Curious Creatures adventure, where we'll be taking a closer look at the eye.
Yeah, okapis are super interesting looking because they're about the size of a horse, but they're closely related to the giraffe. But then that hind section looks kind of like a zebra. Yep. And speaking of giraffes, here is a newly born giraffe working on standing up for the first time. That is one thing about most other mammals is most mammals are literally usually within hours of being born, they can at least walk and move around on their own, um, just in order to survive. Humans are very unique in how helpless the baby is for so long. Giraffes, they hold the record. Well, obviously, they hold the record for the tallest land mammal, but they also hold the record for the biggest heart. An adult giraffe's heart will usually be a good 2 feet long, and they just need a massive heart in order to get the blood all the way up to their brain. And even then, the blood like barely makes it up to their head. And that's with a blood pressure of twice what a human's blood pressure would usually be. Giraffes can run super fast. Well, it depends on what you're comparing it to, obviously, but a good like 35 miles an hour. Obviously, that's not really cheetah speed, which cheetahs can get around 60 miles per hour. But speaking of ungulates, it is one of the ungulates. It's actually native to North America that is barely, barely, barely behind the cheetah for top speed records. And it's the pronghorn antelope that can top out usually around 57 to 60 miles per hour. But unlike the cheetah that can maintain its speed, about 60 mile per hour speed for relatively short distances, the pronghorn antelope can go like 57 to 60 miles per hour for 9 miles. It can maintain that kind of speed. So pretty crazy. Camel. This one, I'm not quite sure where they are, but this family runs into a camel and has a very interesting encounter with it.
Here, you hold it. Hello, camel. Here. Here, grab one.
He's making all sorts of silly noises.
No, camel. Oh, he's a jump.
Thanks. Not a horsey, baby. It's a camel.
Camel here. Here.
Hi, camel.
Camel. I'll feed him.
Again? Okay. Here you go. Last time.
He's gonna get your cheek. Oh.
Okay.
I'm going in the car.
I'm gonna. Oh! Oh!
I don't have any more. I don't have any more, buddy. Guys, I don't have any more.
Oh, Jesus! Oh my gosh! Oh, he's coming with us!
He's going. Camel on the run!
Oh. There he goes. Aaliyah, do you like the camel? He put your head in his mouth.
Yeah, he's taking us where to go. He put his whole your head in your mouth.
In his mouth.
The camel. We can't.
Oh, he said he's not gonna let us go. Nope. We can't go. Watch out, camel.
Oh no.
We're stuck.
Stuck.
He's oh. That camel's got some spunk. Oh, gross.
Oh, gross.
Look what he did to our steering wheel. Look,
Look
he
at
slimed it.
Ew, don't touch that. Ew.
Is he done going potty? Can we go now?
Ew.
Ew, yuck.
Who's that? Do that.
That's slime.
That camel did that.
Oh.
I remember, I think last time I went through biology course, or with the last group, we paused the video right where the camel had put the girl's head in his mouth, and it's a little frightening looking. I'm glad it only lasted for a second, and the girl was just fine.
Rockhoppers are spirited characters, tough, irrepressible, with a reputation of never giving up. It's just as well. As soon as they're ashore, the waves reclaim them.
Yeah, it is very crazy the type of stuff that a bunch of different types of mountain goats can climb. I mean, just crazy insane and sheer rock and yeah, it is something else. Okay, moving on. We're on to order Edentata. These are known as the toothless mammals, but technically some of them do have teeth. They're just not very well developed and they don't have enamel, but they're considered toothless. And there are about 29 species here, and we have stuff like anteaters, tree sloths, armadillos. But rather than the toothless nature, or nearly toothless nature, the main thing that actually unifies this group is something called Xenarthrous vertebrae, and it's just a special structure or feature that their vertebrae have that we're not going to get into. And this group used to include stuff like aardvarks and pangolins, but aardvarks and pangolins each have their own group that they're into now. That they're in now. Because they kind of come up here, though, I have a thing about pangolins for you. And then, yeah, so that's it for Edentata, other than I'll show you some pictures and a couple videos. And then order Proboscidea. These are the trunked mammals, and as you could guess, this has elephants, which there are only two species. There's the African elephant and the Asian elephant. And that is that. But speaking of elephants, let's do video question number 4. Video question number 4. Approximately how many muscles does an elephant trunk have? Approximately how many muscles does an elephant trunk have? And the answer is 40,000. 40,000. When you look at how some of the muscles are like have little subsections to the muscle, you can get that number up to more like 150,000. But 40,000 is the answer for distinct muscles that many elephant trunks have. Okay. So here we have a few different things in the Edentata. And so this is a type of armadillo. This is the pink fairy armadillo. It's not very common. It's kind of hard to find. But yeah, pink fairy armadillo. And here's an anteater. I'm always just fascinated by those when I see them at the zoo. And here's a sloth. They oftentimes look pretty happy with the way that their mouth is shaped. And oh, oops, I left giraffe on there. Here's an armadillo nursing, which again is I put as kind of a reminder that we are talking about mammals here, mammary glands, milk producing animals. Such a wide variety of milk producing animals. And then here's some armadillos in their almost completely wrapped up state. Yeah. And ignore what it says about giraffe.
Sloths are some of the weirdest creatures in the animal kingdom, not really known for their speed or agility. In fact, their name literally means slow, sluggish, and lazy. So one might think that a sloth in water is a sloth in trouble, and it would only be natural to want to try and save it. So what we see here is countless people pull these furry aliens out of the water with the intention of releasing them on land. But surprisingly, they are quite avid swimmers. So should you save a quote-unquote drowning sloth? The simple answer is no. They are able to easily float and perform an impressive doggy paddle. These little buggers can move through the water 3 times faster than on land. Not to mention they are capable of holding their breath for an astounding 40 minutes. Sometimes the easiest way for them to get down to the water is to drop straight from the trees. So if you see one fall or swimming around, it's likely because it wants to be there. It may enjoy a speedy boat ride from time to time, or a quick blow dry to get that nasty swamp water off. But in the end, it's going to be quite difficult to determine where it was headed. So although everyone means well, this may cause more harm than good. Moral of the story, next time a sloth comes swimming by, let it float on. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and giddy up.
Video question number 1. Video question number 1. What do sloths do only about once a week? What do sloths do only about once a week? And the answer is go to the bathroom. Yep, Their metabolism is so slow that that's only as often as they usually have to go to the bathroom, about once a week.
Scaly skin is a bonus for the pangolin when it's out looking for dinner. The pangolin is not very ferocious. It doesn't even have teeth. And it's not very fast. In fact, it has to wobble on its hind legs and tail. But it does have two formidable tools. First, its claws are huge. This is nature's backhoe. It can pry out rocks and rip up hard, dry ground. It does so with a singular purpose, to find ants and termites. And once it rips open the side of the ant colony, it dives in head first. Its second weird tool is a long, sticky tongue, which slips through every crack and crevice. Continually lubricated by an overactive salivary gland, the tongue gathers up thousands of ants every day. The ants haven't evolved a new way to defend their colony. They stick with the old standby, swarm and bite. But the pangolin's scales are a formidable obstacle. Its eyes have a thick lid. Its ears and nose have special valves that close off when the ants attack. The surviving ants may be able to regroup and rebuild. But when they do, the pangolin will be there to destroy it all over again.
Yeah, pangolins are so interesting looking. That just between those plates that it's covered in, and then the way that it walks on its two hind legs. Yeah. And then speaking of proboscidea, we have some elephants here, and in particular some adult elephants who help out a little baby elephant.
Was? Ach, das ist jetzt runtergefallen. Ja, das ist jetzt drin. Komm jetzt nicht rein.
Yeah, elephants have some very strong social and maternal behaviors. I've also read that the way their feet are designed is actually kind of a soft, like fatty kind of a substance for their bottom of their feet, and that when they step, their foot just kind of spreads out a little bit, and it's actually fairly well cushioned in such a way that a lot of if an elephant stepped on like twigs and branches and stuff like that, it oftentimes won't break them. And that because of that, an elephant walking or running actually is fairly quiet from a sound standpoint. So, contrary to the way it's usually depicted as being just loud and thunderous, that elephants are not nearly as loud as they're often depicted to be.